Hi, welcome to River's Knitting Chronicles. I'm River, also known as River Cameron on Ravelry. Welcome to my show. This show is now also available on YouTube. The YouTube channel, I believe they made me call it Knitting Chronicles because River's Knitting Chronicles didn't fit, but you should be able to find me on YouTube, search for those, and you can subscribe to my channel. You can also watch this on riversknittingchronicles.com, which is a WordPress blog, and I've got all my videos uplinked there along with the show notes. So that's a good place to kind of check and see if there's a pattern you want to check out more, and I'll link everything on the blog, riversknittingchronicles.com. I also now have a Ravelry group that, as of last check, has 7 whole members, and I think most of them have seen the show. So that's great, and I'm really happy to have folks to interact with. I think that's really the point of this. As much as I'm talking to what looks like a Dalek, I want to get to interact with more people, and so that's really great. I want to start off today. Sorry, I touch my hair a lot. I want to start today talking a little bit about how I started knitting. I'm not one of those podcasters that grew up in a knitting family. I didn't learn at age 3 from grandma and great grandma. Nobody in my family knit until my daughter started knitting because it was the thing to do in college. And she's still in college, but she earlier in her college career, and she, not a boyfriend, a friend boy she had said she was learning to knit, and he had joked and said that if she knit him a sweater, or not a sweater, a scarf, that he would wear it no matter what it looked like. And so she got what she called unicorn barf, which was a weird, fun fur with all sorts of dangly bits and sparkles and glitter and all sorts of things in it. And so she was knitting him a scarf with it. And this was over Christmas 2010, and we were up at my in-laws. We tend to spend Christmas up there most years. And she was sitting there knitting. And around that same time, well, for a little while before that, but watching her knit, I had wanted a Gryffindor scarf for a really long time. And I didn't want to buy one. I wanted to make one, but I hadn't, taken the step to learn how to knit. And so there she was knitting, and I asked, I want to do that. I want to try that. And she tried to show me. I had some other people try to show me. I bought a book. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So I was Googling online to try to find ways to learn how to knit. And one of the things I found when Googling was Ravelry. Now, I found Ravelry before I actually learned how to knit. I also found some videos on YouTube, and I tried and just my hands wouldn't do it. And finally I found some videos. Sorry, that's my cat, one of them. His name is Al. He looks like a superhero. I'm not going to pick him up for you to see him. He's going to make a mess of everything. Anyway, so I'm on Ravelry and on YouTube, and I found some videos for knitting left-handed because I am very left-handed. There are some people who are left-handed but can kind of get away with using their right if they need to. I just can't. It's just not possible. So, sorry if I pet him, maybe he'll hush. So I found some left-handed videos on YouTube, and it clicked, and that worked for me. And I started fooling around on Ravelry and looking at what all was available, and was looking for Harry Potter scarves, Gryffindor scarves. And I found a group called the Harry Potter Knit Crochet House Cup, and this would have been in January of 2011. And I still really couldn't knit. I hadn't actually knit anything. I had tried and made these really long, I learned to cast on, so I could cast on these really long things, and couldn't figure out how to turn around and go back. And yeah, so I had nothing that I hadn't ripped completely out and tried to start over and over and over before I joined. And sorting had already happened. That happens for winter term. That happens in December, so it was January. So I'm pretty bold sometimes, I guess, and I just jumped right in and joined as a NICFE, not quite first year, and I jumped in and said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I love Harry Potter. I love everything Harry Potter. I want to join. And everyone was like, hey, welcome. And everyone was so incredibly nice and so accommodating and never treated me like I was an idiot or how could you not get. I remember one of my first posts, you can search in my posts and find it, why I'm looking at pictures of knitting and their knitting is in V's, but mine just has these lines. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Um, well, now I know I was knitting in garter stitch and not stockinette because I hadn't yet learned how to purl. But everyone there was still so very, very nice. And so the first thing oh, you never climb on me. The first thing I knit and turned in was a small bear blanket for my son. And it was basically just garter, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it took me pretty much 2 weeks or so, and it was about this big. I gave it to my son. I don't quite know where it is. Al, you cannot have a cameo. So then I want to say the next thing that I did was my Gryffindor scarf. And it is humongous. It is huge. I don't think I can get the whole thing in the shot. And because I'm not bright, or I didn't know any better, it's knit in the round. And it's, so here's funny, it's garter in the round, which means that I did have to learn how to purl in order to do it. And so it was a knit around, purl around to get all of the lumps and bumps that make it look like garter. And you can see everywhere I screwed that up, and we have some just random rows of stockinette through here. We also, and I still to this day don't know how I did it, I have what looks like a seam that runs all the way down. I didn't seam it. I knit it in the round. I have no idea. I couldn't do that now on purpose if you paid me. I don't know how I did it, but it appears to be seamed. So the way the pattern, and I should have looked up the name of the pattern, I'm sorry I didn't. And then at the ends, what you do is you take the two edges, you put it together with the fringe, and so it seems like one huge thing. It's incredibly warm, which is not all that useful because I live in Florida. I wish it were softer. It's Lion Brand, so it's a little itchy against the skin. If I lived someplace where I could have a coat and then put it over a big coat, it would be awesome. One day I do plan to re-knit it in something softer. It's much bigger on one end than the other because the yarn would split, and I just knit if the yarn looked like suddenly it was super skinny, I just knit it, and I think it grew something like 15 to 20 stitches from one end to the other. I just had no clue how to read my knitting. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knit one gargantuan scarf, and I love it. After that, I've knit a number of other things that are house cup related, and I'll share those on different days. One, though, of my favorites that a lot of people seem to remember me for and know that I did, Woolly Thoughts designed right before the Deathly Hallows film came out, a shawl that is illusion shawl, Harry Potter Deathly Hallows illusion shawl. And if you look at it from the front, you can sort of see that there's a face in it, and this is reverse. But basically, it looks like stripes. But if I turn, let's see if we can start to get it. All of a sudden, yep, Harry is staring at you with a scar on his forehead. So, stripes, Harry Potter. Movie Harry Potter. So yeah, when I brought this to show my students, because I'm a show-off that way, they were just, even kids who were like, I hate Harry Potter, they say that just to make me angry, were just amazed. They're like, is that magic? How'd you do that? That's magical. Oh, shoot, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of people were really amazed by it. What's interesting to me is I had people talk me into, it didn't take a lot of arm twisting. It was one of those, oh, I don't know if I should, so that people will say, do it. And yeah. Anyway, freely admitting that. Anyway, I had decided to go ahead and enter some things in the county fair in the knitting. I'd never done it before. I didn't know anyone who'd done it before. And so everyone said, enter that. There's no way it could possibly lose. It ended up getting second because, like an idiot, without thinking, I entered 2 shawls, and I beat myself with a different shawl I'll show you on a different day. Um, which I still don't understand how that happened. I wonder if they didn't bother to turn it sideways to check it out or not, because the other one is pretty too. It's fingering weight, whereas that is DK. So maybe they just liked thinner weight shawls. Maybe that one doesn't make a ton of sense in Florida. It is pretty heavy. So I don't know what the thinking was. I didn't get to see what the scores were, but I thought it was funny that I entered 3 things. The ribbons are behind me, and won 2 firsts and a second. And the reason I got the second was because I beat myself. So yeah, that's kind of cool though. Okay. So anyway, so they've helped me so much. It's the best group around. You feel free to not join my RAV group, but seriously, the House Cup is amazing. And if you like supportive yet kind of there's not pushing, but there's deadlines. There are things that kind of help you keep on task and on goal. It's a great group. So moving on, now I'm going to show you some whips, works in progress, and they're going to look, well, all of the ones that were works in progress last week are going to look exactly like they did last week because I haven't touched them at all. But I didn't share all of the pertinent information, so I'm going to show them again. And we might have some new viewers this show. This is my first ever to be completed sweater. I did attempt a sweater before, probably about a year ago. I think it was last summer that I tried it, and I had a lot of trouble with the yarn. The whole thing just wasn't working, and I was getting so frustrated. The yarn kept splitting. I wasn't really great at reading my own knitting then, so I had lots of mistakes in my ribbing and things like that I'd gone well past before I noticed, and just didn't want to have to rip back, and it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And in a fit of annoyance, I cut it off the needles and threw. It was, I swear, it was maybe that big. It was the ribbing and maybe an inch or two from it was a bottom up, and threw it away. And one of my RAV friends got really annoyed with me. You know, you can reuse the yarn. It's like, I'll never touch this yarn again. I have since gifted it to another friend who I think is enjoying it immensely and has made this horrible negative sweater thing into a positive, and hopefully she's enjoying it and it's behaving for her and being what she wants it to be. So that sweater never got finished, but this one will, and it is the Vodka Lemonade by Thea Coleman, and I am knitting it on Madeline Tosh DK in the Tart colorway, and that looks so much better this time than it did last time. I'm alternating skeins because it's hand dyed and I don't want to end up with a dark section and a light section. But they're close enough that it at least at this point to me doesn't look like it's striping, because I've seen a few people who've done the alternating skeins and it's looked like stripes, which I really don't want to have happen. Okay, so here's the front. This is top down, so this is the collar. Oh yeah, that color looks much better. Well, now it's turning orange. This is the collar and the top, and I'm still not used to doing this yet. So this is where the top of the shoulders are. This is the collar, so it'll sit like, here's my head, and then it goes like this, yeah. Well, now I'm confused. I've confused myself. Also, what I forgot to say last time is that I am knitting it on US 6s, which are 4.0 millimeter needles. I'm using Knit Picks, the Harmonies interchangeables. I am an incredibly tight knitter, and I'll talk about it in just a second, but it's starting to really bite me unpleasantly, because I'm working on the tour de sock, which I mentioned last time. I'm going to show you in a minute. but knitting for long periods of time, knitting really tight, the tireder I get, the longer I go, the more I tend to grip. And it got to the point a few days ago where my hands were starting to swell and it really hurt. And it was just really uncomfortable. I couldn't bend my fingers the way I needed to. And it seemed like the more uncomfortable it got, the more I would grip. And it was just making things absolutely miserable. And I'm trying now to be cognizant of what I'm doing with my hands as far as the gripping thing. I'm hoping it's not going to mess up my tension too much with the Tour de socks, because if it does, I'm going to need to buy new needles. But generally, if a pattern says knitted on a 5, I automatically swatch one size up and then go from there. Some things I have to do 2 sizes up. Some things, I don't think there's anything I've ever done that I could just do with the patterns specified needles. I'm just way too tight a knitter at this point. And again, I've only been knitting since beginning of 2011, so not that long. Number 2, let me take that out of the pile. The second thing I'm going to show you, I showed you last week as well, and it's in the exact same place again, sorry. But I didn't tell you about the needles and the yarn. So this is the Gyre Cowl, Gyre, by Elizabeth Elliott, and I love it so much. And this is rolling, so it's actually a thicker edge than that. I am knitting this on US 7s. Also, I have obviously a set of Harmonies. I'm not the hugest fan of them the way I was when I first got them. I've had 3 cables break, and it might be but I don't grip at the end where the cable is. I grip onto the needles, so I don't think it's me, and one of them broke in, well, they all broke in projects, but I wasn't even knitting at the time. I was trying to frog something, and I was pulling the needle out, and the cable just snapped, and I was like, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore. Anyway, I do like knitting with them, though. I just wish that the cable joins were more reliable. This is Malabrigo Silky Merino. And this, to me, looks like brown, but they call it smoke. So I guess it's a kind of grayish brown. It's just brown. And this is, and I wrote it down, Ambrosio. And it looks very red there. It's pink and red with long kind of color changes. And for color work, I can't recommend these 2 together more. It's just gorgeous, and I just want to go out and buy a ton of it and knit a bunch of other things to do more color work with them. So those are the things you saw last week, and I had told you that the Tour de Sock was starting on Saturday morning, and 9 o'clock in the morning the pattern came up. I'm in a local sock knitting group that we meet every other Thursday, and we sit and talk socks. And I had talked up Tour de Sock so much that a bunch of my friends in the knitting group had also joined. And when I'd seen what the first pattern, we didn't know what the pattern was, but we knew what they wanted, and that was a tonal or semi-solid and some beads. And I said, I betcha it's going to be a belly button knits pattern. And I was right. And so, that's so funny. This is my sock number 1. I need to get sock blockers for the show. The pattern is called The Secret Fan, and it is inspired by a book, and I will put a link because the title has totally fallen out of my head. And you can put it anywhere, but it includes the pattern for you to have a secret fan added to your sock in beads. And so I put mine there so it'll just peek out of the top of my shoe. And this is the most beautiful heel I think I've ever seen. It's got eye of partridge on the sides, and then it's got the straight marching slip stitches down the sides. And then the gusset decreases, instead of being on the side of the foot, are through the bottom of the sole. And when I first saw that, I thought, well, I'm going to feel that when I walk. It's going to be uncomfortable. I don't feel it at all. And it really makes this heel fit so much snugger than others that I've knit. And I just love it. And I'm going to use this on other patterns. I want to show you how I picked up. She had included in the pattern a link to a video on picking up stitches, and I tried to do what that guy was saying, but this isn't at all how his looked. That's how my picking up stitches look, but they're not wholly. They just have these neat lines, and then this here is my slip stitches, and then he had you pick up right next to where you slipped, and I love how it looks, but it's not what the tutorial said. So I still am clueless as to how to do it that guy's way, but generally I have one side of slip stitches that look great and one side that look like yuckiness. These look the same on, sorry, backwards of the camera is really freaking me out. These look the same on both sides, and so I'm actually happy with that, but I am wanting to learn how to do it the way the video showed. So this is no, not mine. It's called The Secret Fan. It is by Adrienne Fong, Belly Button Knits, if you look her up on Ravelry, and she has tons of patterns. I actually, if you'd like to see sock number 2, that's as far as I've gotten. I am in the middle. I finished the cuff. I'm in the middle of the first repeat. Get that little string out of the way. I'm in the middle of the first repeat, and I always think I can do more than it turns out I can. I really was hoping I'd be going faster. In order to get tour points, I have to be done by Monday morning, and it's Friday evening, and I still have an entire second sock. But I know the pattern pretty well. I'm not going to have to double check. I know how to do the little cable crosses on the sides, kind of off the top of my head. So I'm still hopeful, but I'm not as confident as I was. Oh, and I'm knitting these on to demonstrate how tight a knitter I am. I'm knitting these on US size 3s, which are 3.25 millimeters. So they're pretty big. They're bigger than what is recommended for the pattern, but I get exactly gauge with them, but I don't get row gauge. I just wanted to share one other thing, because this is totally a love letter to Belly Button Knits. I adore her. I had finished another pair. These were her tour socks, her design from last year, and this is called, oh shoot, it's flown out of my head. Oh, Stardust. They're called Stardust. They're also beaded and lacy and gorgeous. They have regular heels though. And I loved I finished one in time for the tour last year, and because I'd run out of time, I didn't do the other. I saved it, and I finished the other one last month. I did the other one in May, and for the Knit Crochet House Cup, Harry Potter Knit Crochet House Cup, you have to always do socks in pairs, and because I already had one, I had to make a pair. Now, they don't have to be a matching pair, they don't have to be the same pattern or even the same size, so I made this teeny tiny little, I tried my best to get the pattern to adjust to the top, so I have this little tiny guy who I think is the cutest thing on the planet. And so now my idea is, because you know I have all this time in the world, I'm going to put little loops on. I'm going to make teeny tiny socks for all of these fancy socks that I do on the tour, probably not during tour time, but in the future. And so I'll have a little baby of this too, and a little baby of all the others, and I will then have them be Christmas ornaments on my Christmas tree. And I think that that will be absolutely adorable. Okay, so upcoming knits, and I'm going to have to turn around because I forgot to grab it. Upcoming, starting Monday mid-morning or so, is Tour de Sock pattern number 2. And I haven't seen the pattern yet. I don't know what it is, but I have, sorry, wound my yarn. And I'm going to be using, this is Miss Babs Cosmos in Wheaton colorway. And then it asked for a contrasting. And this is Mad Tosh Tosh sock in coral. This is what's left from those socks over there. So I'm hoping that this I'm going to reweigh it and make sure, but I'm hoping that this is going to be enough to go with this. And then it's a contrast but not super stark, and I just really love the idea of that. So I'm really got my fingers crossed that I finish these other tour socks in time and can get these going. I don't want to say this, but I'm really doubting if I'm going to actually be able to stick with the tour and the tour schedule for all 6 pairs, because this pair has taken, literally that's all I've done all week. I did go to lunch with my daughter and my son, and he went and did something Saturday morning that was totally not fun for either of us, actually. But for the most part, I've just kind of been sitting here and knitting socks, and that's not how I want to spend my summer. I have other plans and other things that I want to do. So I either need to figure out how to knit faster, and I'm hoping that not gripping so much will help my speed, and I need to kind of back off on myself and say, if you don't finish them, you don't finish them, and everyone will understand, hopefully. So that is all that I have for today and for this week. I just really want to say thank you very much for watching me again on episode 2. I hope I gave you all of the information that you would like with my objects and finished objects and all of that. I know I didn't show pictures of the patterns. If that's something that you'd like, stick a note or reply to this, make a comment, or in the episode 2 thread on Ravelry, you can leave a comment. Hey, it would be nice if you include the pattern pictures on your whips. I do have a Nook, so I could do it that way. I just didn't want to take more time because we're at almost 30 minutes. I'm trying to keep this between 20 and 30. Some other great ones are at an hour, some are at 45, and that's where Melissa is. Single-handed knits at 45. Knit Girls, Knit One Heart 2 tend to be right at an hour. So I'm trying to give you an alternative of time. Oh, I only have 30 minutes. Well, that's time enough for River. So that's what I'm hoping for. But if you'd like more, or you'd like me to show some different things, I'm hoping that I'm holding the knitting up long enough and getting it close enough to the camera. But yeah, feel free to let me know what you like and what you'd like to see more of or differently, and that'll be great. So I'm River Cameron on Ravelry. You can reach me, riversknittingchronicles@gmail.com is the email for the podcast. riversknittingchronicles.com is the blog, and Rivers Knitting Chronicles is the Ravelry group. So there's lots of ways to get in touch, and I hope to see you again next week. All right, thanks. Bye.